Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories Podcast. I am your host for today, John DeLynn. It's January 29th, 2024, and we are here in a moment of tentative celebration. We are super excited to announce, based on our best information, based on our own sleuthing and our multiple contacts, our intel, that the Mormon Church is now officially allowing legally same-sex married couples to not be excommunicated, to be members of wards, to even hold callings, and to take the sacrament. And we're here to talk about that. We're obviously going to be talking about Charlie Bird and his husband, Ryan, what's his last name? Clifford. And we'll explain why we're talking about them as well. But it's potentially really big news. We're really excited to have you with us. We are live streaming to YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We're trying that out. And this is a joint episode with Kyle Ashworth and the Latter-Day Stories podcast. Hey, Kyle.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me. And this is a fun topic. Celebratory. I just put away the 2024 fanfare things but maybe we should bring it out again. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. We also have, thanks for joining us. It's good to have you here, and all the Latter-Day Stories audience. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks again for having us.
We also are excited to have Gerardo back. Hey, Gerardo.
Hey, John.
You're kind of producing this episode, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. This was your idea. But I'm in full support. Anyway, thanks for making this happen.
You. Yes.
And we're super excited to have Jillian. Jillian, what's your last name?
Jillian Orr.
Jillian Orr, I knew that. Jillian, tell everyone who you are really quick.
I am the BYU graduate that flashed the rainbow flag on the inside of my gown when I graduated about two years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as we found out right before airing, you're going to represent all the members and church leaders who have no idea what's going on, right?
I'm the ignorant population. Thank you.
Because all the stuff we're talking about, you had no idea was even happening. I should mention that Jillian and I are both going to appear on a Jubilee Middle Ground episode this Sunday. Mm-hmm. February what?
4th? Yeah, they're going to be posting it at 9 a.m.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's what they were telling me. 9 a.m.
Mountain?
Pacific.
Okay. So 10 a.m. Mountain, Sunday, February
the 4th. And
4th.
I'm holding out to not watch it until the watch party.
Yeah.
I got to hold out.
Oh
and,
my God.
And Jubilee, for those who don't know, it's this YouTube channel with like 8 million followers. My kids watch it. They don't care about Mormon stories much, but they love Jubilee and Middle Ground.
So you said I'm going to go and hijack Jubilee. So
it's the first thing I've ever done that my kids actually think is cool.
That's awesome.
They're like, wait, you're famous now.
Yeah. They're like, John, your dad, you're relevant. Anyway, it's going to be Mormons versus ex-Mormons. It's got me and Jillian, a couple friends on the ex-Mormon side, and then it's got Cardin Ellis and Kweku of Ward Radio / Midnight Mormons, and who's the dude that I don't
Timber Howard.
Timber Howard, and then a young 19-year-old woman who's a convert to the church in LA. Anyway, it's going to be a big deal. Mormons versus ex-Mormons, Middle Ground on Jubilee. Everyone needs to check it out Sunday. Gerardo.
John, people are saying that the video is pretty frozen.
I wonder if that's Instagram.
No, I'm seeing it on YouTube. And it's pretty bad. It's super glitchy.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it because I don't know what it could be?
So I'm going to shut down Instagram.
Is Dropbox off?
It should be, yeah. So I'm going to end Instagram and we'll start over. Apologize to everyone for the glitches. Let's just see really quick if that's any better. Actually, I'll put the screen on you, Gerardo, and go check.
Okay.
You're not doing Instagram, right?
No, it is pretty grainy. I see it.
Yeah. It could be also because we have it opened.
Is it straight?
Because we're watching it. I don't know.
Because Kyle's watching it and you're watching it?
Yeah,
Gerardo?
could be. Sorry, guys. We're trying to figure out why the video is so blurry and glitchy on YouTube.
We want it to be awesome.
Yes. But yeah, thank you for joining us. There's like already
There's
several.
definitely no Dropbox here.
Okay, several hundred people
Is it
joining.
straightened up?
It's even on Facebook. It looks pretty glitchy and just very pixely.
Is it possible it's because too many people are watching it?
No, I don't think so. It has to do with our upload.
That really is a terrible problem when too many people start watching.
Really?
Like, I don't.
Could it? I mean, what if we try to close
There's
it?
Dropbox.
Try your Windows
Dropbox
on your
was open
computer.
on this laptop.
Oh,
So let's try it again.
sorry guys. Still trying to fix it.
Okay.
We're gonna cut this part of the episode out. Thanks for joining.
They get the organic version though.
I know.
Okay.
fun
So
one.
how do we know? So I'm going to just ask. I'm watching the private chat. Can Julie and Maven or the audience let us know if the grainy video is better?
Let me do a check on internet speed.
It's still bad. Why would this be happening?
I don't know because the internet speed test is like super good.
Pretty bad.
I mean,
Long audio delay.
your upload speed is pretty slow, 13 megabytes per second.
Frozen.
Gerardo is frozen now.
We could try to start a new live stream.
That would suck.
That would suck, but we're better now than later.
So can I just confirm if it's still bad, everybody? Please text right now if it's gotten any better. This is me. This is Kyle. Go ahead and talk, Kyle.
Hello, hello. I really wish. Yeah, it still looks pretty bad. So.
Yeah, I'm seeing it too. It's pretty bad. Let me think about it. Do you have a lot of Windows or tabs open?
Don't end it. Just refresh. What does that mean? Okay, so I can exit out of the stream.
Let's see if it worked.
Buffering.
Where's your modem?
Back there. Okay, testing now to see if the video's any better.
Hey, the video's better.
Yep. Okay, we're good now.
Beautiful.
That fix it?
Yep, that fixed it.
Do you want to try and do Instagram again?
No.
Aboard.
Abort Instagram. Let me just confirm. Still not what it should be. Does look better. So Maven's saying it's not what it should be.
I mean, I think it's good. I think it's what it usually looks like when we're streaming.
Yeah, people on the Latter Gay Story side said much better. It looks great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So should we try again?
Can you make sure that your quality video is 1080?
I just did,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. Yeah, it looks good.
You're a miracle worker.
Thank you everyone for being patient.
Yeah.
now you saw how the sausage was made. This is what we have to go through.
Yeah, sorry everyone.
Let's see what.
Is it
Okay, Julie's saying it's okay. All right.
okay?
All right, so we're going to start over.
Round
So,
two.
Julia, Maven, as soon as this episode's over, mark the time code for when I start, and we need you to edit the YouTube video immediately to chop off the whole beginning. Can one of you private chat?
So should we start from the very beginning?
We are going to start from the beginning.
Oh, we are?
I'm just reminding Julia.
Okay, because we can
No,
just cut
no.
the part that was bad. Oh, I guess the
Julia,
video was bad
Maven,
from the
we
beginning.
need someone to make the edit immediately, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
marker.
So, yeah. Does that make sense, Maven and Julia? I'll do it if you guys don't know how to do it. Okay, I'll do it. Just remind me to do it. I'll do it. Okay. All right, so let's start again. Thanks, audience.
That was fun.
Sorry about that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories Podcast. I am your host for today, John DeLynn. It's January 29th, 2024, and we are super excited to have a moment of cautious celebration. The title of this episode is Callings and Sacrament for Married Gay Mormons. And just to give a tiny bit of an overview, for over a decade on Mormon Stories, we've covered that the Mormon Church has a long, long history of excommunicating same-sex married couples. And we've interviewed 4 or 5 of them on Mormon Stories Podcast alone. Latter-Gay Stories Podcast has covered that as well. It's just been the long-standing policy of the church, Mormon Church, that when they find out you got same-sex married, you're toast, you're excommunicated. Well, recently we've been able to confirm through intelligence and through sources that we know of at least 5 or 6 legally same-sex married couples who are actively attending their Mormon wards. They are taking the sacrament. At least some of them have callings, and it's known by their bishop and stake president that this is happening. And we think it's really important news. And so we're cautiously celebrating this really important moment in Mormon history. And joining us to discuss first is Kyle Ashworth of Latter-Gay Stories. Hey, Kyle.
Hey, John. Thank you for having us. Thank you for inviting the Latter-Gay Stories audience and allowing us to participate in what I think is also something that is worth talking about. We, as you have mentioned, we've discussed this for a lot of years. This is kind of the point of advocacy, right? Where we, from a grassroots level, begin to try to induce change within an organization that has some room and some opportunities for change. And now, if it's happening, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation.
Absolutely. For those who don't know Latter-Gay Stories, you want to tell them what that is?
Yeah, Latter-Gay Stories is the longest running LGBTQ podcast, probably in the history of the world. Started in 2012, specifically with the angle of LGBTQ, LDS, that intersection of LGBTQ Avenue and LDS Street. We continue to share individual stories to help change the narrative and help bring better understanding to the LDS community, specifically on LGBTQ topics. So this is right up our wheelhouse, and this is exactly the type of change and the type of conversation that our audience is welcoming, but also wanting to better understand and wanting to be a part of.
Absolutely.
Conversation-wise.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Kyle. Also joining us today is my partner in truth and righteousness, Gerardo Simano. Hey, Gerardo.
Hey, John.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
You're kind of producing this episode, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been, pretty interesting. And we'll be talking about where we obtain the intelligence and stuff. So
Yeah.
it'll be fun.
And it's probably worth mentioning that you and I don't remember if Kyle wasn't in that episode. We talked about Charlie Bird and Ben Shalati a couple years ago on a Mormon Stories episode.
Yeah,
Is
we've
that
done
right?
actually a couple episodes I had forgotten about. We did one we call the Mormon Reformation, where we specifically talked about Charlie and Ben and others. Basically just a history of the Mormon Church and advocate, or what would you call them? Like
Just kind of gay advocates,
Yeah.
gay poster children
yes,
for the church. Right?
and how the progression has happened throughout the years. And then we did another one called the Gay Mormon Rescue or something like that, where like Ben and Charlie went on a fireside that was pretty interesting and commented on their questions and answers section of that.
Yeah, and just to hit it right off the bat, like we're not trying to like dox these guys. We're not trying to harm them. We're not even criticizing them or calling them out. What would you say our intention is, Gerardo?
Well, I think it's important to celebrate, right, what's happening, and one of my intentions would be that if anyone is being treated differently in their ward or stakes, they can point their local leadership to this episode, be like, there's bishops and stake presidents out there who are embracing gay same-sex married couples. So I think everyone should be getting the same treatment.
Yeah.
And with the Latter-day Stories audience, like we've been intimately involved in these stories because we share them, and so the idea of seeing a random couple receive a calling who is married isn't completely foreign to our audience. But I think the important part of an episode like this is that now probably one of Mormonism's the highest profile gay married couple is also following suit. And that's what I think is big. That's what I think we should talk about, because as we discussed this kind of off the air, at what point do you say the cat has now left the bag and Pandora's box is open, and what do you do with that? And how do you put this all back in? For the Mormon Church, this really kind of is a watershed moment. This is big.
It really is. And the final panels that we have today is a friend of mine, and probably a friend to many of you, Jillian Orr. Hey, Jillian.
Hey.
Tell everybody who you are and why you're so cool.
Like ice cream sandwiches. And
It's the haircut.
it's true. It's a given. That's why I got it. I am the BYU graduate that had the rainbow flag sewn on the inside of my gown when I graduated BYU about 2 years ago. So that's kind of my thing. It's kind of what I'm known for.
And then you and I were about to be known for appearing on an amazing YouTube channel called Jubilee.
Yes.
There's a show called Middle Ground. Do you want to tell everybody what's going to happen soon?
Oh my gosh, I'm so stoked. This Sunday, Pacific time, 9 a.m., Jubilee is going to be releasing a panel that we did, Middle Ground, where it was Mormons versus ex-Mormons. John and I were on one side of the panel, and then
We were on the Mormons. No, just kidding.
swapping sides, undercover. We had one side with us and a couple other friends, and then we had Cardin and Kwaku on the other side, some apologists, as well as some other individuals, where we discussed some pretty heavy topics, some pretty mainstream concerns of masturbation or doctrine changing, which kind of...
Or is the Mormon Church a cult?
Or is it a cult?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
are they welcoming to the LGBTQ community? And so
Right.
we had a big discussion that's going to be released, and I'm stoked for it. I'm holding out till I have the watch party in the evening, see if I can make it, but I'm excited.
So check it out, everyone. All right. So that's going to be what we're going to talk about today. And I think it makes sense also, we've known about Charlie and Ryan for months. Kyle, were you at their wedding?
No, we were out of town, but the wedding happened in August. So
What?
Oh, should we say that
What?
Jillian is like she's representing most Mormons? And
Because Julian's out of
They got
Julian's out of the
married?
loop.
Because I knew they were engaged. Did you get an invite? I
Okay,
didn't
wait.
get an
Kyle,
invite.
tell everyone who Charlie Bird is, and for who doesn't know.
yeah, so Charlie's rise or claim to fame really came as maybe two secrets. It's the tale of two secrets. One, he was a closeted Latter-day Saint student at BYU, or even just a closeted Latter-day Saint who then also became Cosmo the Cougar while he was...
Which is BYU's mascot.
BYU's mascot, and critically acclaimed. I mean, he won a lot of awards, a lot of attention. I think ESPN's number one mascot.
ESPN. He was a big name.
So it was a big name, and here he was not only hiding behind a mask as Cosmo the Cougar, but he also was hiding his sexual orientation as well. He was gay and kind of navigating that world as well. I knew Charlie kind of as a baby gay, involved in some really small, low-key LGBTQ Sunday schools that we would do that he attended, and just kind of watched him grow, kind of gained some strength. And then in time, he was able to find some footing advocating for kind of some change within the church, but also just better understanding the LGBTQ experience, which then led to multiple firesides and opportunities to speak, and some books and just some notoriety within Mormon circles. Then I think it also becomes somewhat problematic. The fame also brings with it a lot of criticism and a lot of opinions and people telling you how to live your life. And I think each of us with platforms understand that, and we recognize how difficult that can become, because everybody is a Monday morning quarterback. Everybody tells you how you should live your life, and that stress and that pain also hasn't avoided Charlie's experience either. And so I think maybe one of my goals is also to, as we discussed earlier, to give grace where grace is necessary, and also talk candidly about some of the interesting and difficult parts of this journey as well. Because I think Charlie has also kind of through this process as well done some harm in addition to some good. I think we're all probably guilty of that. And so this is interesting mainly, and as we've discussed this, he has a gigantic platform in this space as being a gay Mormon. And what do you do with that when it now appears that the church is saying that's okay? And they're providing pathways for that. That's really why Charlie is relevant.
Yeah.
Can I give a little bit of a backstory?
Really quick, you attended Charlie and Ryan's wedding when?
No, I was not.
Oh, you were not
We
there.
were out of town.
But they got married when?
They got married in August at the state capitol.
August of 2023.
Of 2023.
Okay, so they've been married for 6 months.
7 months.
7 months. Okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't kept low key. I mean, it was a big party, but I think the idea is to kind of harness the fame of this and kind of so they wanted to do a YouTube video, like a multi-series YouTube channel. They wanted to really like ride the coattails of the influencer world by releasing just little tidbits. So the fact that he is married and it's a big deal may come as a shock to some, like
And
Jillian.
why are Gerardo and Jillian laughing?
Well, I'm laughing because Jillian's kind of shocked that this is happening.
Jillian, did you know Charlie or were you at BYU when he was there?
Yeah, we actually graduated at the same time. So when I graduated with my gown, he was also graduating with his master's. And so that's when we had connected and we chit-chatted and we'd run into each other on and off. And we kind of know what we both do and what we were both doing at the time. But I was not invited
So
to the wedding.
you're shocked?
I am shocked. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Okay.
Well, let me say that I'm really happy that you know him because I didn't know that when we talked about inviting you to the panel, but now I'm relieved that at least one person. Well, I guess you also know him in person, but
Well, he
yeah.
knew about the wedding, and it was a party apparently.
yeah, huge party.
Even this is the interesting Cosmo danced at the wedding too, which I thought that could be problematic for the church. But
You mean the current BYU Cosmo attended the
yeah.
Or
wedding?
he was it. He was
no.
Cosmo.
The current Cosmo showed up with
wow.
scantily clad.
Whoa.
They did a dance
Arm
for
sleeves.
the husband, right?
Yeah. So
And I've met Charlie. I've had dinner with Charlie
Oh,
long time ago, several years ago.
Oh,
So I've met him.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they claimed otherwise on one of their
Okay.
podcasts.
All right.
Well, okay, nice. I just wanted to say that we haven't talked about this in our redo, but we've done a couple episodes where we've talked about Charlie and Ben Shilati, who they both have a podcast together called Questions from the Closet, the episodes have been maybe somewhat controversial for some people, I think. And there's a clip that we're going to play where they're responding a little bit to one of the episodes that we did. But just a little bit of a story I wanted to give is that right when the first book, Charlie's first book, was being sent to print.
What was it called? Do we know the name
Behind the
behind the
Mask.
mask, yeah.
That's when he met Ryan. And they actually started dating. So by the time it was published, they were already dating. And Charlie's going around, to stakes, giving firesides, and Mormon moms and people, all Mormons are believing that he's celibate, but he's secretly dating Ryan. Eventually, I think a lot of people, including us on Mormon Stories, talked about him having a secret boyfriend that he finally decided to come out clean, and he went to the honor code, told them that he was going to break up with Ryan, and at least for the time being while he graduated. And so he did. He didn't face any discipline necessarily, as far as I know, as far as he expressed on the podcast. But then he graduated and got engaged to Ryan, and now they're married. So yeah, that's the story.
Yeah. And we've known about this marriage since it happened.
Yeah.
We've held off on covering it, not wanting to just jump on this story, invade their privacy, etc. But what led to us sort of deciding we wanted to cover it was the Mormon Church's recent hiring of Aaron Sherinian, I think is how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
He's the new director of communications for the Mormon Church. And as soon as he was hired, I think he replaced Eric Hawkins, but as soon as he was hired, I guess some conservative Mormons went and checked his kind of, Instagram and Facebook profiles and found out that he's been marching in pride parades. He's pro-LGBT. He has they, them pronouns in his bio. Jillian's freaking out. Why are you freaking out, Jillian?
I didn't know this either.
Yeah. It just happened like a couple weeks ago.
Whoa, the PR. Wow.
The head of PR, yeah. And, when the Supreme Court decision came out legalizing same-sex marriage, he's got a tweet or an Instagram celebrating it. Yeah. So and he's pro-trans, so that was a really big deal.
Wow.
But there's several people in kind of the conservative Mormon world on YouTube who were quite confused and I think you could say upset.
Yeah.
So there's this Greg Mattson guy from a YouTube channel called Quick, but also this Jacob Hansen guy from a YouTube channel called A Thoughtful Faith. And what I thought we'd start with is Jacob Hansen's clip, just to provide what really was the impetus. Because once this is coming out on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and everywhere, and Charlie himself is posting about him and Ryan being active, then all of a sudden we don't feel like we're just doxing a private citizen. It's become a matter of public discourse very broadly, including instigated by Charlie himself. And so at that point, why would we hold off?
Yeah, it really becomes kind of the affect or effect of advocacy. It's the reason why Charlie is attending all of these firesides and holding these opportunities to better help the Latter-day Saints understand this topic. And now you're kind of seeing the results of your labor. Therefore, I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll play this quick clip from Jacob Hansen.
Is this no longer what we believe? It is at the very least confusing to have a bishop in our church posting love is love while the church's official teachings are that homosexual relationships are seriously sinful. In fact, I was recently involved in a membership council for someone who had engaged in homosexual behavior and where he faced church discipline. Yet, when the Deseret book author Charlie Bird announces his engagement to his boyfriend on social media, I see other LDS authors and BYU officials writing entire blogs where they celebrate this union that the church teaches is deeply sinful. Now, regardless of your opinions on these matters, is this not confusing? Even Young Women's General President Emily Bell Freeman still has Charlie posted on her social media page as an example of someone that we can all learn from. So is it that some people who have some level of celebrity status don't face any sort of church discipline for what they do, while ordinary members like my friend do? I couldn't help but think of my friend who was in that membership council and what he thinks about all this.
Kyle, you were kind of smiling.
Oh, the humanity. The idea that because you're gay, you cannot be, you can't learn anything.
Oh my gosh,
Keep going.
Is this no longer what we believe?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay, keep going. Sorry.
No, you just think of that as like how condescending, how this is maybe a discussion about privilege, and from Jacob's perspective, he's looking at Charlie saying, "You're gay, therefore you cannot be believed," and that's one of the biggest problems that I find in Mormonism. Is you don't have a temple recommend, I can't believe you. Oh, you're this idea that you have to be verified, sourced, and part of the fold in order to be believed is really a problem within Mormonism, and I think Jacob does an excellent job at showing really one of the Mormonism's biggest blind spots in its inability to be diverse, and it's very real attempts at ostracizing any voice that is not its own.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one because it's just so we want to try and bridge it because it's so contrasting. It's so contrasting to feel that one is treated one way when another's treated another way. On my way here, I was talking to my brother who was gay. He was gay before he came out before I did, and he was telling me his experiences of bishops that he had and how he struggled with one bishop that treated him extremely unfair when he recognized that he was gay, and he went above him to the stake president, and the stake president, instead of doing something about it, moved my brother to another ward. And so it just feels like this roulette where he was frustrated because he's like, Charlie's not going to get the same treatment that a lot of people have. And so part of us, there's a celebration of this is great. And then there's another part that hurts because that's not what everyone's been experiencing.
And I think the Exmo crowd and maybe even the nuanced liberal Mormon crowd is saying that exact same thing. This is just a case of leadership roulette. You're highlighting something that's just a very small minority. And that, I think that's really the discussion we need to have. Is this really just at some point I think now is the point where we have this discussion that maybe this isn't just leadership roulette. Maybe, perhaps, possibly in a roundabout way, this really is a change. And I think a big name like Charlie Bird may say this could be a change because it's big enough that how do you undo this?
Right.
Yeah. All right, Gerardo, you wanted to play a clip from Charlie and Ben's podcast, right?
Yeah. But I did want to
please.
discuss that. Well,
Yeah.
what should we discuss? I probably after I explain how do we get the information. But basically, I think you already explained, John. We've been hearing that that Charlie and Ryan had been embraced by their word, by multiple sources, and we have known about it for several probably months, and we didn't really want to cover it. But finally, I think the Jacob Hansen video was what made us, okay, I think this is important. And then also finding out that there's other couples who are getting similar treatment as well, right? But one of the things that happened last time we covered Charlie and Ryan on, Charlie and Ben on the podcast was that I think they were, I don't know if upset is the right word, but definitely didn't like what we said about them. And this was when Charlie was still not openly dating Ryan, so he was not telling people about it, and most Mormons believed that he was celibate, including BYU administration. And we talked about it on the podcast because we heard about it through several sources. And I think we got accused, especially me, because I was the one who said it, of spreading rumors and telling lies. And I just wanted to play the clip of what Charlie and Ben actually said about what we said. And this is the episode of their podcast where actually Charlie's coming out clean and telling people that he was dating Ryan. But if you just want to play it, because
So this is season 3, episode 1 of
Questions from the Closet.
Yeah.
And this will give people a visual sense of Ben and Charlie.
Yeah.
So let's play the clip.
But yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, like
Charlie's
I'm
on the
lying.
left.
And I felt like the worst.
So you're realizing that you're the worst. At the same time, there are like rumors about you. And I hear about them all. There's even a whole podcast episode about you and me.
Oh my gosh,
that
I don't want to talk about that podcast.
You know?
I still haven't listened to it.
Okay. Do you actually not want to talk about it? Or
No, like I'm just like, ugh. Because yeah, like I think that's a testament to the social pressures that I was feeling. Because I'm hearing those rumors too, and
this podcast was funny because it's like 3 people who have never talked to us talking about us for an hour and a half.
And I didn't listen to it, but and honestly, that's been happening like ever since I came out. There's like people saying things about me that aren't true.
And just for the record, I have met and had dinner with Charlie Bird.
Yeah.
So that's not true.
Likewise with Charlie and Ben, many times.
And Gerardo.
Well, so that kind of made me feel sad, that they're saying that they were rumors and lies when we were actually right. He was actually dating. But anyway, so this time when we were hearing from several sources that he had a calling, and both him and his husband, and that they were allowed to take the sacrament, we wanted to confirm it. So we confirmed it through screenshots of LDS Tools, and then also yesterday I decided to go to their word and actually see it for myself, because I was like, I'm not going to be accused of spreading rumors again.
So what'd you see?
So I should say I didn't want to go by myself. I knew I told asked my husband if he wanted to go with me. I think I didn't want to put pressure on him because I know these things cause him anxiety. So I decided to ask Cara Burrell if she would come with me, and she of course said yes. And I picked her up. We were a little bit maybe too early, so we decided to stop by Starbucks right before church. And as I wanted to say this, as we were driving through entering the parking lot, it's a pretty interesting word. Most of the cars are Jaguars and Mercedes and Teslas. And I was like, wow. I hadn't seen that many expensive cars at one place other than maybe, like a dealership. But anyway, so we went in and we got there a little bit early. Sacrament started. And I was surprised that it was pretty empty. I would say 60 or 70% of the word arrived probably like 2 minutes before the doors were closed before Sacrament started. And actually Charlie and Ryan were not there. And literally like 5 seconds before the song, like the final hymns ended and they would close the doors, I did this and told Kara, oh my gosh, this was a waste of time. But sure enough, they walked in. And they sat just a few seats from us. I don't know if they saw us, but I got a pretty good view. And pretty much confirmed it. Yeah, they both take the sacrament. And
why is that significant to you, Gerardo? The sacrament part.
Yeah, so when I heard about it for the first time, and I talked to my husband and my sister or my dad about it, I thought the calling was interesting to me, but they all thought that the sacrament was actually the big thing. And the reason that I've understood now is because if you are taking the sacrament and are allowed by the bishop, the bishop knows that you're taking the sacrament. That means that either the bishop doesn't believe you're actually sinning, or you have anything to repent of, or that's like too bad, which is, we know that the law of chastity, violating the law of chastity is second to murder. So at least their bishop and possibly stake precedent, they don't believe that they are committing the sin next to murder, which is kind of cool and progressive. And I think that's why it's pretty interesting.
That's so confusing. That is so confusing, because even just being in a gay, even just kissing a girl,
right?
Even just kissing a girl, I can't take the sacrament.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
according to what? Who?
According to bishop, according to the standards of the bishop's handbook, is if you participate in any homosexual relationship, even at BYU, if you hold hands or date girls, you'll get kicked out of BYU.
Right.
But if in the church, if you are kissing a girl or pursuing the lustful desires that you have of pursuing homosexual feelings, you can't take the sacrament. And so that blows my mind.
And just for those who are trying to speculate, I do have a source who's confirmed that the bishop and the stake president know that they're married and, support what's going on. So it's not a matter of the bishop and stake president not knowing.
Yeah, 100%. Like I've got additional sources too. And so I'm listening to Jillian, like kind of her mind is blown. And then I think like, but should we also have a conversation about like these differing standards? Because it seems like we have talked about Bishop Roulette, but BYU Idaho has a different standard than BYU Provo. BYU Hawaii has a different standard than those two BYU schools. Bishop so-and-so has a different standard than President so-and-so.
And BYU has a different standard than even the church does.
That's
like
right.
BYU's more strict.
That's right. And so that's what I'm saying. Like when we start talking about just kissing somebody or in a relationship or creating a friendship, like really what standard should Mormons live by? And this then goes back to what Jacob Hansen is talking about, or Greg Mattson is talking about, or any of these other conservative, ultra-Orthodox Latter-day Saints. What standard are they judging this topic by? And at what point does the church become responsible for setting the record straight and creating a narrative that is uniform? Because then, I mean, all four of us have differing opinions as to what is acceptable or what certain leaders allowed us to do or not do. And all of those are four completely different experiences.
Right.
How can that be standard? And how can you literally judge somebody's next afterlife, experiencing the next afterlife by creating a set of standards that literally is as colorful as the roulette wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the rub here is because we don't want to invade Charlie and Ryan's privacy. We don't want to have them get in trouble. We're not trying to cause trouble. This is a celebratory podcast. But at the same time, we acknowledge that this podcast maybe contributes to forcing the church's hand to clarify what's going on.
To me, I think that's probably one of the hardest parts about doing an episode like this. Candidly, honestly, it is the idea of if the church is allowing this to happen, I don't want to stop that, because to a lot of Latter-day Saints, and I think there's a big difference here between Greg Mattson and Jacob Hansen will talk about Latter-day Saints of faith, gay Latter-day Saints of faith, like people who are living single, celibate lives. I also want to talk about gay Latter-day Saints who are faithful, who have faith, who aren't just talking about the covenant path, but are talking about a relationship with Christ. And I want to give them that space if that's their path. And so I don't want to ruin it for them either. If the church is in a position where they are making changes and want to do it the way the church always does, like these pilot programs, or we're going to do it here but quietly and don't talk about it here until we roll it out. I understand the way the church works, and it's super confusing at times. And I don't want to, I guess my point, I don't want to stymie that. I don't want to stop that from happening if that's what the church is doing. But I also want to make this very public and give a platform for this, that it is happening. So other bishops and other church leaders out there who are contemplating how they handle this topic, and their wives and their families who also have an input on how the church affairs are run at a local level. I want them to know that you're not alone out there, that there are other bishops and church leaders out there who are making substantial changes to the status quo, and you can be part of that change as well.
Yeah. I should say that this morning I had this beautiful conversation with my dad, who I've said a million times on the podcast that my dad's a bishop. But I was telling him about it, and I just wanted to hear his opinion on it as a bishop. And as the conversation started going through, and I was explaining who Charlie was and what was happening and how I saw what I saw, I went to church yesterday and saw it. He's like, you know, if Zach and you, my husband, if Zach and you decide to come to church and come to our word, I would let you have a calling, and I would give you a calling, and I would probably also let you take the sacrament. Like I wouldn't tell you not to. And I was like, wow. Like, so if this episode does that to other bishops, I mean, you know, that's great.
Yeah, maybe the culture can shift enough that God's mind has changed too, because that's what we're crossing our fingers on, right? Is that enough bishops say, hey, yeah, we'll do it too. We'll do it too. That then all of a sudden we can get new revelation of like, hey, now it's okay. Because if maybe God was like, no, until Charlie Bird did it. And he's like, actually, I like Charlie. Let's make this allowed.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we'll just show you really quick visually. There's a picture of Charlie Bird. For those who are watching on YouTube or Facebook, there's his partner, his husband, Ryan Clifford. We have confirmed through LDS Tools that they both hold callings of Ward Activities Chair. And then, Gerardo, do you want to explain these images?
Yeah, so I included a couple of screenshots. That one is a post that he made. This was before they were married, and they both attended the Washington D.C. temple. I don't think they went in, but they were looking from the outside anyway. But they made a post about how he feels about the temple and how it makes him feel, blah blah. But what's interesting is that the official account of the Washington D.C. temple commented on the post and said, "This is beautiful. Thank you for sharing your experience and touching testimony." Some ex-Mormons thought that was significant, you know, like an official church account commenting on a gay couple's post.
Well, and to add to that, like the post actually talked about he and Ryan being there together, and I mean it was very clear that they were in a relationship.
Yes,
so
right.
It wasn't just, oh, here's two handsome guys that are standing out in front of the Emerald Castle, and yeah. So it was important.
Yeah, so that's pretty significant. There's another one, I think, right?
This looks like a little video.
Sorry, it's not showing up.
Oh yeah, here's the video. Should we roll it?
Yeah, so we included a couple of videos from Charlie's account about how because this is important too, right? He's public about his relationship, very public about it, and very public about being active in the church. So it's not like we're
outing him or
outing
doxing
him or
yeah.
doxing him. Yeah, he's very, very public about it. And so there's a couple of videos that we wanted to show that are interesting.
All right, let's roll the first one. For those who couldn't see that,
Yeah.
what did you just see?
So it's Ryan and Charlie at the beginning, and there's a question from someone on Instagram that asks them, are your Mormon families supportive of your marriage? And then it's just a bunch of pictures of their LDS families attending their wedding and celebrating, which is pretty cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. What? Oh, Kyle.
No, I believe the answer is yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a yes at the end.
Okay. And what's this next clip, Gerardo?
So this one is just a little answer that he gives to a question about how come your church teaches that your marriage is not valid. So kind of how do you reconcile that?
And the comment that he's responding to says, "Your marriage doesn't count in the eyes of your God. So waiting was pointless." I don't know.
Oh yeah, because this is a response of a video that he made that he waited until marriage for sexual intercourse.
Oh.
So so this is a person responding, well, if your marriage doesn't even count, why did you wait? Kind of thing.
Okay. Because God wouldn't want you to live the law of chastity if you were gay.
Well, it's kind of like
He's like, if you're gay, just throw it all
I was
away.
like, you're all in or you're all out at that point.
Is John Jacob handsome? Is that what's happening here?
is this idea that like if the church says that your marriage is counterfeit and doesn't even count, why are you waiting? You know, like for the church, there's no difference like before and after gay marriage because gay marriage is not a thing.
Yeah. All in or all out. Jillian.
That's just my thought. I was like, I remember in the temple when they talked about it, like law of chastity is homosexual relationship. I'm like, well, check that one off the box.
Yep.
That's okay. All right, let's roll the clip.
Oh.
Is it possible this one doesn't have?
Oh.
I think there might not be audio for that one.
I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. If you remember what he said approximately.
Yeah, I mean, he just explains about his beliefs and he believed that was right for him, and he's kind of tired of people telling him what to do or not to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think ultimately, like his point was that it was his choice, and that was just, part of his own personal relationship with God, and I respect and honor that. If that's something that Charlie wanted, and Charlie and Ryan wanted that, and that's what they did, that's completely up to them.
Yes.
And I respect that autonomy, and I respect their opportunity to have that relationship with God,
Yeah.
however they see fit.
Got it. Okay. So Gerardo, what's this next?
Last one. So this is a post he actually made yesterday about why he stays active in the church.
So it's like January 28th, 2024.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And we're not gonna put the post there. People can go and read it and see why he decides to stay. But there was a comment that was.
But I'll just read the main post. It says, if you missed it,
Oh, yeah.
I put up a post tonight about why I stay active in my religion, even though it can be painful and difficult as a gay man. I'd love for you to take a few minutes to read it. I think this is important because it's not like it's these two quiet guys being private who just want to live their private religious gay lives. Charlie's openly, how big is his following?
Just
160,000.
Yeah, just under 200,000. So quite a significant.
So bigger than Mormon Stories on Instagram, right?
Yeah, like 4 times.
Yeah. And he's telling the world I'm active and here's why.
Yeah.
So, I mean, fair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You want to go back to it?
Yeah, so there was a comment there that was kind of interesting, and I just want to read it. It says, "Sadly, I think it largely depends on the bishop and stake precedents. The fourth option, which is an Instagram account, is a gay married couple, too, who share about their experience being active members. They can bear their testimonies and have callings, although not official callings. I think actually Ryan and I don't know, you were a word clerk Kyle. So with the fact that it's an LDS tools, that makes it an official calling, right?
Yeah, and I actually wanted to go back to this calling discussion too. Yes, it is an official calling. And I think the thing that we're not talking about either, and I don't want to completely derail, but when you're called, what happens?
Oh,
Yeah.
A bishop interviews you, finds you worthy, and then you stand up in front of the congregation, the bishop does, and asks for a...
Sustaining vote.
So that's why I think this is a huge thing to talk about.
Yeah.
It's because not only did the bishop feel like Charlie and Ryan were worthy to
Wow.
have a calling, but they also opened it up to the general membership of the church in their area, which is predominantly Latter-day Saints, in a very affluent area. And the members raised their right hand to the sustaining square and approved the calling.
And probably just to clarify what a calling is that it's a responsibility in the church. Normally it's like helping with the youth or teaching lessons or getting involved somehow with teaching the doctrine of the church to the people. And so having a calling is pretty significant because you're seen worthy, like you're saying, to be in a position where you can teach or support or be a part of, God's servants in the church.
yeah.
Okay. So, Gerardo, what were you saying about anything else about this slide?
Oh yeah. So and then but this lesbian Latter-day Saints, apparently they don't have official callings according to this person. And it says, I often think about how my social media stories I share would potentially get me in trouble too, and it's scary to think about. But I hope the church will scale back on excommunications because it just isn't right. Anyway, and then the truth option, which is this lesbian couple who are active in the church, who are allowed to give their testimonies and have callings, and they commented on the post as well, and they actually talk about knowing other gay couples who were actually excommunicated, and they acknowledge that their experience is not what other people are experiencing in the church. But they have a Instagram account, the.fourth.option, and they share their experience being active in the church.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, and so it's not just Charlie, it's not just Ryan, as we've said. It's
Yeah.
at least 5 or 6 other couples that we've confirmed across the U.S.
Yeah, and I know a lesbian couple who are married here in Salt Lake City, and her obviously 2 women, but one of the wives is a secretary in the Relief Society presidency.
Jillian's face.
Jillian, do you have something to say?
Every time something new comes up, I'm just shocked. I'm just so shocked because, part of me is like, that's great. That's great that there's movement. And then part of it just like, every time I hear something like that, it actually hurts my heart because of the grief that I've experienced.
You yourself?
Yeah, just the pain of me and hearing stories and talking with my brother and my friends or people in the queer community, just like how painful it's been to be ostracized, and then to see people who are accepted and allowed to be part of different things. It's just mind blowing to me because I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of pain behind that.
These are the queer stories that I want to reach through and just hug everybody because they're so hard.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of Latter-day Saints who want to remain Latter-day Saints, a lot of queer Latter-day Saints who wish to remain queer Latter-day Saints and love that identity and love God at the same time. And they're literally ripped from the pews and told, you cannot worship with us. And they're excommunicated. And I think that's the real problem with a discussion like this is, what is the metric? What makes a Charlie and Ryan work when a so-and-so who was equally faithful, I'll say equally faithful because they chose to be there, they wanted to be there, they love God, they believe in the church, and they were kicked out and they were ostracized. And does that really just come down to who their leader was? Or were they not faithful enough? Is Charlie and Ryan more faithful? Are Charlie and Ryan more faithful? Is that the reason why they're in this position? I just think this is a discussion, and this is a problem that Mormonism needs to fix.
Really quickly, there's a couple comments I'll show that have come in. Trevin Cutler-Knapp says, so crazy. I sat through disciplinary counsel for same-sex relations, was out on probation and told I could not take the sacrament, hold any callings, give talks or prayers in any meetings. Thank you for sharing. I'll just share a couple more. Rock Moninoff 808 writes, wow, just wow. As a gay man myself, I don't know how to react to this. I think of the gay people who have died by suicide because they wanted this and could never have it. Thank you for sharing that, Rock Moninoff 808. We're going to be showing some clips of a few past Mormon Stories episodes that tell the stories of people just living their beautiful married gay lives, and the bishop comes knocking on the door and excommunicates them on their doorstep. So that's going to be coming. But thanks for those who shared those comments that help give a sense for why there's a real injustice here. Gerardo, is it worth it just covering really quickly the church's policy on same-sex marriage?
Yeah. Well, this is important because the handbook hasn't changed, right? We're not saying that this is coming from the top. I think it's important to acknowledge that this is coming from local leadership. As far as like how high high up they're asking, we don't know. But definitely the handbook of the instructions, which is the manual that bishops use worldwide to guide them in making decisions about what to do with members, that hasn't changed. So we can read what it says today.
Well, I would say this does come from the top in the sense that the current handbook of instructions allows it to be a local matter of discretion.
As far as excommunications, but as far as like considering someone worthy to take the sacrament, I think the handbook is pretty clear.
Okay.
About that.
All right. Let's show it.
So there's a section 38.6.16, same-sex marriage. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's this paragraph that says only a man and a woman who are legally and lawfully wedded as husband and wife should have sexual relations. Any other sexual relations, including those between persons of the same sex, are sinful and undermine the divinely created institution of the family.
Okay. So gay sex, lesbian sex.
No, wah wah.
Still a no.
Yep.
Okay. Did you want to read the next slide?
Yeah. This is from the section 38.6.15, same-sex attraction and same-sex behavior. And it says God's commandments forbid all unchaste behavior, either heterosexual or same-sex. Behavior that is inconsistent with the law of chastity may be cause for holding a church membership council.
But it says may.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not required.
Right.
It used to be required.
Right.
Like just, 5 years ago?
Yeah, it was. And do you think this is maybe the Mormon Church like opening up an option, the fourth option, the fifth option here, where they literally are saying like, oh, because we all experienced it when we were growing up kind of through the church. We would love all of the pews to smell like tobacco smoke because then we'd know like everybody's sins. If everybody's sins smelled like tobacco smoke, this kind of is set up to say like, we can give callings to everyone because everyone sins. And so if we said you couldn't have a calling because you sinned, that would preclude everyone from a calling.
Yeah.
I just wonder if this is how the justification wagon kind of rolls through the pioneer, the Oregon Trail.
A lot of people are saying in the comments that there's a difference between assignments and callings. Is that true?
Sure, and I've seen this too. So kind of we discussed this earlier before the episode. A secretary in the Relief Society presidency is a calling. A ward cleaning scheduler is an assignment. And so there are queer people with those callings, like building a scheduler, a building security or a cleaning scheduler. I don't think those are like callings, but I know the activities chair is a calling that falls under the bishop and takes direction from the ward council. So they likely would be sitting in a ward council or a representative in the ward council. That puts you pretty close to, I've sat in ward councils. I know who sits in those meetings. Those are your bishop, your counselors, your Relief Society president, your high priest or elders quorum leaders now. So, you're with the top brass of a ward.
Yeah. Something that Kara just said, this is a tangent, but something, it just came to my mind. Kara said to me yesterday when we went to their word, was like, can you imagine how much it would have made a difference for you as a 12-year-old knowing that there's a gay couple in your ward and you handing them the sacrament every single Sunday? Like what that would have done to you as a closeted gay 12, 13-year-old. And I was like, yeah, that would have been life-changing. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are saying. Don't mess this up. Like what this whole thing does is it risks Charlie and Ryan being excommunicated or dismissed or canceled in some way, so that those kids in this ward won't have that experience.
That is my worry. And then I'm just reading the comments through on the Latter-day Story side, and I'm reminded there's another woman who just said, yes, I have a calling in my ward, and I forgot all about her experience. I even interviewed her on Latter-day Stories, and she, outside of Utah, has a calling. She says, albeit minor, but it is still a calling, and it's something that she enjoys, and she's active in church, and she's transgender. So the experience is there even outside of kind of Mormon Mecca in Utah, and I don't want to ruin that for these Latter-day Saints either. But I also, again, want to emphasize the important fact that this is happening, and if you're a church leader out there who's contemplating whether or not that gay Mormon in your ward is worth a calling, I say yes, they absolutely are, and extend those callings and give people an opportunity to serve, because if they're choosing to be in your pews, and then maybe the facetious side of me says, you'll take anyone you can get at this point. But if they're choosing to serve and allow them to serve and give them an opportunity to fulfill a responsibility. It was Hinckley years ago. Every new member or every member needs three things: a friend in the church, nourishment from the good word, and a calling, a responsibility. I don't know when or if that will ever change, but I think those are all three things that every queer Latter-day Saint who chooses to attend church need as well.
And how cool is that for them? Like, these new stories that I didn't know about, like a transgender individual who was baptized, or a queer couple that was married is allowed to take their sacrament and have callings. Like, how exciting that they feel like they get to do both things that they love. Like, how cool would that be to not have to pick between your spirituality and sexuality? Because that's how I felt. I always felt like I had to pick between my spirituality, my sexuality. And I completely agree with you when it comes to having the youth see that, or like I'm trying to think, I was like, when was the first time I met a queer individual? I actually couldn't even tell you, because I was so involved in my ward, in that world, that I never even was exposed to such diversity that I don't like. Maybe I did know them and we didn't even know, but it's just a cool thing to be able to merge if that's what really is making people happy, and allowing them to choose what makes them happy.
And the alternative opinions, the ones who are really the loudest voices against things like this, have spent a lot of time, like, I don't want to say pointing their muskets. I didn't want to say pointing their muskets, literally pointing their muskets towards the LGBTQ community. What these very conservative, ultra-Orthodox Latter-day Saints haven't been able to create a narrative around are the allies, the family members of bishops, like the wives of the bishop, or other church leaders in the ward who are supporting things like this. I've got a story right now at Latter-day Stories about a family in the Pacific Northwest who stood up for a transgender kid in their ward. And they're some outside, a couple members in the ward, and then some outside kind of periphery ward members are absolutely they're going bonkers over this. They've involved the bishop, the stake president, the area authorities, trying to get these families affirming Latter-day Saints in their ward excommunicated. They want their callings taken away because they showed up in a rainbow pride pin, or they read a book about Jacob who wears a dress. And so the narrative, the kind of these muskets have always been pointed at us, like the queer Latter-day Saints who show up on Sunday or try to do our best. But now there's cisgender, straight Latter-day Saints who also are supporting. There's no narrative for that. And it's really difficult for Jacob Hansen to go up against a bishop or up against the bishop's wife and find relevancy or find somebody who supports him, because it was a lot easier just to target the queer person. And I think that's a beautiful part of this advocacy as well.
Love it. Okay.
Are people saying that because we're talking about it, we're risking them?
Those are just the thoughts that came to my mind.
Yeah.
But I really, if I thought that was going to be the outcome, I wouldn't do this episode.
Yeah.
I really think the cow's out of the barn. I don't think the church can put this genie. How many metaphors can I use? I don't think the church can put this cow genie back in the barn bottle.
Yeah, I totally agree.
In a bag.
The candy bar is out of the wrapper, everyone.
You're just chewed gum. Oh, wait. Is that too much?
Oh, God. PTSD.
Yeah, so that's my hope, is that this is a watershed moment. Really quickly, Gerardo, we also included last thing. Did you want to say one more thing?
No.
Okay. In the Church Handbook of Instructions, if we went back to 2015, the church made it so same-sex marriage was a mandatory, disciplinary council with mandatory excommunication, which actually put same-sex marriage higher than rape and incest in terms of severity. And we did our best to embarrass the church to the point where it needed to change that. And
that's what I was going to say to the response. If anyone thinks like, oh, why are you highlighting this? They might be taken away. Well, I don't think the church reversed the November 15 policy because it was kept secret, right? I think they reversed it because we kept hammering it and exposing it, right? And that's how the church changes.
It's literally the only way the church changes is when they get really bad media.
And I think the other interesting part about that kind of, I don't call it a reversal because it really was just they took the puzzle apart and then they just put the puzzle pieces in other parts of the handbook. But I do think the interesting part was Dallin Oaks, when he announced that, he specifically said we did this because the members created a divide between the Latter-day Saints and the LGBTQ community, and it become really harmful. And so we wanted to kind of mend those fences and bridge the divide. He said, we essentially, we want the members to do better, and we want the members to stop with the prejudice, stop with the bigotry, stop with the hatred. And I just thought that was even super interesting and maybe a tad bit tacky that the church would say it's not because we gave you a uninspired, undivine revelation. It's that the members didn't know how to treat the LGBTQ community. It went south really fast, so therefore we're going to blame the members for the rollout of the 2015 policy or the impact of the 2015 policy, and then kind of put that pressure on them. I thought that was really weird. At the end of the day, I'm glad it's gone, at least on paper, and we can still continue to work for a better Mormonism for both straight and non-straight Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
So for those who are able to see, who can't see, I'll explain it. We've got from the Church Handbook of Instructions when a membership council is required or maybe necessary. And then, it's got 2 columns. A membership council is required, and it lists murder, rape, sexual assault, conviction, child or youth abuse, and violent predatory behavior. And then under sexual immorality, that's the category of violent acts and abuse. And then under sexual immorality, it lists incest, child pornography, plural marriage, and sexual predatory behavior. And then there's a second column that isn't mandatory, but instead it's membership council may be necessary. And same-sex marriage or cohabitation and civil unions and partnerships are under may be necessary for disciplinary council. And then, and so, what that shows, people need to know that it looks like the church has backed off excommunicating same-sex married couples by 2024, and that's a big deal.
It is a huge deal because I followed this Latter-day Stories really, really closely, and sometimes I would have close to a dozen stories of people who were facing excommunication, membership restrictions based on their relationships, and it wasn't even just marriage. It was if they were cohabitating or in a same-sex relationship. There were bishops that were out there, and it really. I mean, I was highlighting. It almost seemed like maybe 2 or 3 a month. We were sharing these stories of people who were excommunicated who chose to stay and who wanted to be in the pew, wanted to practice Mormonism, but they were told they couldn't. And it was always guised under the law of chastity, like we're excommunicating you or doing this membership council because of the law of chastity, your violation of the law of chastity, never set right. I think the second part of that was administratively how we could intervene with those excommunications with some phone calls and get some of those stopped. To me, that's a whole nother podcast episode. But if this was like the divine will of God, why could just a couple phone calls or a few emails reverse these decisions? If it absolutely was the mind and will of God, always confusing to me. But I 100% would go to bat for the queer couple who chose to stay in the church. And so did some church leadership. I want to give credit where credit is due, but there are some leaders at 50 North Temple who believed the same way, and they would intervene, and there were excommunications that were stopped, dead in their tracks.
Yeah, and I've got close contacts who say that the Quorum of the 12, Quorum of the 15 is divided, and that there are members of the Quorum that are pro-LGBT, even potentially pro same-sex marriage, and then others that aren't. And so, that's a problem.
And those who are pro, it didn't take very long for them to contact an area authority, who contacted the stake president, who contacted the bishop or branch president, and excommunications were stopped
Shut down the excommunication.
within days.
Yeah.
I really hope for the sake of for the sanity of the queer community, just kind of what you're talking about, it's great, and I love that they can have these changes and these pivots and all these things that are shifting, but I hope that there's explanations as to why. I hope that there's reasonings, because I remember, just being a part of it. And before I even started identifying this way or started to recognize how I felt, I remember being like, oh, well, my brothers gave it. We'll figure it out one day. We'll figure it out when we're in heaven, right? But then when it was me, I was like, shoot. I need answers now. I can't wait until I die to figure out why. Because, and this is an analogy that we it just came up when John and I were filming with Jubilee this last time in LA, is that it feels like being a stray dog. It feels like to be queer in the Mormon church, from my personal experience, is that it feels like being a stray dog, where it's everyone's excited and we gather around and look at this stray dog we took in and we love. But the stray dog doesn't get to live in the house. It never gets its own space. It never understands why either.
It doesn't get a place at the table.
No, it doesn't get a place at the table. It's not equal. You're a second-class citizen, if anything.
You get the scraps.
And there's no reason why. We don't know. We're like, oh, well, God will tell us one day. Well, why can't we know? So I hope as these changes happen, which are for the benefit of the mental health of queer community, but also the happiness, is that there's also an explanation as to why.
And wouldn't that go to show how unsustainable Mormonism really is? Because I 100% agree with Jillian. The idea that, oh, we don't have an answer to that, that'll come. Just don't worry about it. Think of something else. Refocus your attention. And when enough people ask those questions, it really does put the church in a position where they have to start answering those. And if you can't answer them, then you just capitulate and you just open up a space for this to exist. I kind of think that's part of the area we're in now, where we don't have an answer for you. We can't explain why we did what we did. Therefore, we'll just do it, and we'll just allow it to happen. And if it happens enough, and the members, it doesn't really matter how they react. If stories like this continue to pop up, then again, the genie, the cat, the cow, the
candy
bar. It doesn't matter at that point, because it now has just become part of the vernacular, part of the experience.
So for those who just feel like we're just being mean to Charlie and Ryan, we isolated 4 or 5 clips from, Mormon Stories episodes within the past 5 to 10 years, some of them within just a couple years.
Less than a year.
Yeah, that we wanted to play just for the historical record. And Jillian, I'll be curious to hear your responses to these as well.
All right.
I'm sure, Kyle, you've seen them. Gerardo, do you want to talk about the first one?
Yeah, so this is my friend's.
Actually, let me do this. So some of the episodes we're going to be showing, there's Jill and Katie Searle, episode 974 to 975, Responding to Tragedy. This is where Katie Searle's mom, Jill, talks about her excommunication. We have Lori Lee Hall, one of the chief architects for the Mormon Church.
Fascinating, beautiful, heartbreaking story.
Who was excommunicated just for not even having surgeries, just gender expression, social transition. Yeah. That was a powerful one. We've got Elizabeth Grimshaw, and then we've got Dusty Johns. Those are the ones. But the first one, Gerardo, do you want to set this one up?
Yeah, this is my these are my friends Brendan and Douglas. And I think the clip is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
So what's happening.
And we just want you to contrast the treatment that Charlie and Ryan are currently enjoying relative to what these people whose clips we're about to show you, what they experienced just a year to 5 years ago.
Less than a year. This one is last July.
Yeah, we did this episode a year ago.
Yeah. All right, let's roll it.
Sorry, I just want to make this clear. So you had moved out. How far away from your home ward where you grew up?
So I was raised in Meridian, went to church there.
Okay.
I moved to Boise, the capital of Idaho.
He's in college.
In college, going to Boise State.
And you were living together at the time.
Living together, small, remote apartment. kind of got like a back entrance. Like you got to go and find it for sure.
Like a student apartment.
Yeah.
You never transfer your records from your old ward because you never attended church. You hadn't attended church in 4 years.
Yeah.
So after I graduated high school, I did try going to singles ward because that was
But the record
what you were supposed to do. But my records, we learned it never moved over because I was only there for 2 Sundays.
Okay. And just so people that are not from here can just get an idea, how far is that where you were going to college from your home ward?
It's about for me, it's a 20-minute drive. If you're driving, at a normal pace, it's like 30 minutes.
Okay. And it's a different stake. Is
Yes,
that right?
completely different stake.
Okay.
Definitely
Completely different
stake.
Probably
All right.
like 3 stakes over. 2.
All right.
I don't know exactly. So
Okay. Continue.
Oh yeah. Hanging out Wednesday night, knocking on our door, and then Brennan comes out and opened the door, and there's these 2 men. I was just sitting. I was like, "There's 2 dudes, soliciting at an apartment complex."
this was
At
8
night?
p.m. at night. Yeah,
Yeah.
this was 8:30 at night.
That was weird. And then they deliver a letter. I knew that they were from church because they were talking. We're from so and so ward, and then
I recognized one of them. The other I didn't recognize, but they introduced themselves, and I asked, what I was like. Well, you drive. I actually said, well, you drove all the way across town. I think I said thank you for taking the time, which I was trying to be polite. But I took the letter and I started opening it, and,
right in front of them.
Yeah, and they kind of had this look like, oh, maybe we should like go away now, before he starts reading it. And I saw the line which said, "You are being called to a membership disciplinary council on the basis of your conduct related to same-sex marriage." And so I didn't say anything to them. I let them go, and then we closed the door and kind of looked at each other, and I was like, "Babe, you need to come and look at this."
Did they make faces? Was there any verbal reaction from them? Were they just standing awkwardly as you read it?
Oh, so I was opening the letter. I'd briefly skimmed it, but before I went to call Doug over, I had let them go. So they headed out. And we read it, and we talked for a little bit about like what it meant, and I was like, what is a membership council? Because I'd heard of disciplinary councils before, but I didn't know if the membership council was the same thing. So we talked about it, and it took us a bit of conversation to figure out like the weight and the immensity of like what this meant.
Right.
And so we were like, oh my gosh, we need to call Gerardo. And
I was like, text Gerardo right away.
And they called you.
Yeah.
And do you know what happened?
Yeah, I told them to record all the conversations they had with the bishop and then stake president. We put them up on that podcast, and I think we embarrassed them enough that they left them alone and didn't excommunicate them.
Okay, so in that case, they weren't excommunicated because of Mormon stories.
Yes.
But we've got others where it did happen. Should we roll those?
Yeah.
Let
me say the reason why I think this was so significant. I mean, they had the right context, right, to get on Mormon stories and embarrass the bishop publicly. But Brennan, who was the one that received the letter, he had never served a mission. He didn't have the Melchizedek priesthood. He literally went inactive after being 17 years old. He was living outside of ward boundaries, and they still went and found his address and to deliver this freaking letter to excommunicate him.
Yeah. All right. Jillian, any thoughts?
My face is always giving my thoughts away. I'm just wondering, like, why? What is the reason behind it? And if it was a valid reason, why didn't they follow through with it then? Because if it was a valid reason, if that's what's supposed to happen, why didn't they follow through with it? Like, what's the priority here? What was the motivation?
It's PR.
Yeah.
That's why we do these episodes, because it makes change in the church.
Yeah.
Full stop. All right. The next three weren't so lucky. So this is Jill and Katie Searle, episode 974 of Mormon Stories podcast.
One other thing, when I was excommunicated, I think.
You were excommunicated?
I was excommunicated, not for years. Susie and I had been together at this point for a lot of years. It was probably 2001, 2002. We were in McMinnville. The kids were in high school by this time, junior high and high school. They were 50-50 with me and Brent. Things were very good. They enjoyed being at both homes.
That's her
They
ex-husband.
enjoyed 4 parents, raising them well. And I got a call from the bishop clerk saying, the bishop wants to talk to you. I'm like, by this time I haven't been to church for, say, 15 years. I'm like, what about? Would you like to come to his office, or would you like him to come to your home? And I said, I guess come to my house. I mean, that's what I said. I wish I had said, there's no need, I don't want to talk to the bishop, but I didn't. Still trained to obey. So he came knocking at the door. This was during the Multnomah County, you can get married now, period. And Susie and I had just gotten married. And he came to the door and he said, could you come out on the porch? I mean, I just spent 45 minutes cleaning my living room for this man. Why don't you come in? Well, I'd be more comfortable if you came out on the porch. Then I remembered, oh yeah, he's by himself. He can't come in to my home because I'm a single woman. And then, so I went out on the porch just to make it easier for him. And he proceeded to excommunicate me. And he was a very kind man. I could tell he was uncomfortable. I could tell he didn't want to do this, that he was doing it because
He did it on the porch.
it was obligation. He did it on the porch. Because it was recently passed that if you're a woman and didn't hold the priesthood, you didn't have to have a court. When Susie got excommunicated, she had to have a court. But times changed, and now if you're a woman, you don't have to have a court. You can just be excommunicated on your front porch. Very convenient. So he said I don't even know if that I agree with this, but I'm going to excommunicate you because you're living in a way that's contrary to the teachings of the church. And if you're not willing to change that, then we'll carry on with the excommunication. So I said, let's go for that. Let's do that. And he left and he apologized again. And then he said, your kids are great. You've done a great job with your kids. You're welcome to church anytime. I'm like,
And people are asking whether that's the married couple or a mother-daughter pair. That's a mother-daughter pair. That's not the married couple. So any quick comments on that story?
Just heartbreaking.
It is.
So
And it's
sad.
traumatizing. Like going to council, having people come address you and say these things, like that is, I don't think you understand how traumatizing that is to hear from someone that you respect in a position that you're supposed to respect and honor.
Yeah, and in 2024, when we talk about witch hunt, the political climate has given that a whole new meaning. But when this was recorded and when this happened, that really was a witch hunt.
Yeah.
That was, they were hunted down, they were found, and they were exclusively or specifically targeted to be excommunicated. It's just gut-wrenching. Just doesn't feel good.
What do you think about women not needing courts? They can be
It's like
excommunicated
they're
in the
not
front
even
porch.
important enough to have a court.
Second-class citizens.
Oh my gosh.
It's a great point. And it's like, for people who say, well, the church doesn't change, like our policies are consistent or the doctrine's consistent and policies follow. This is another example of how that's just untrue.
Yeah. So that last one was like before Prop 8, before the Supreme Court decision. This next one, I think, was right around the 2015 time period. Let's roll that one.
He said, you were going to have to leave your relationship or we're going to have a disciplinary council held. And I said, well, obviously I'm not going to divorce my wife and I'm not going to participate in a disciplinary council. And he said, well, I want you to pray about it and I will come back at the end of the month.
So he's asking you to pray about leaving your wife.
Wife, yes.
and daughter.
Yes.
Okay.
So he said, we can do it the gentle way, and you can write a letter asking to have your membership taken out of the church. And I said, I don't want my membership relieved from the church because I believe in God and I believe in some of the components of the church, not this particular one. And he said, well, I want you to pray about it and I'll be back at the end of the month. And so that's how we left it.
Okay, and so that was when?
That was February 8th, which was, yes, that was 2 days before our 10th anniversary of our commitment ceremony. So that was, yeah, that was a nice week.
So that was 2 weeks ago, basically.
Yes.
So how did that feel to have the bishop come to you and say these things?
That felt like a punch in my stomach. I came in the house, I was absolutely sobbing, and I was out of breath, and I was just shocked. Absolutely shocked. Because I knew about the edict in November about, them considering us apostates, but I didn't think it was going to turn into a witch hunt about coming to people's doors and giving them ultimatums. And I felt threatened, and I felt intimidated. And when I get into those situations, I start crying. So I started sobbing with him standing there. And then I felt mad at myself when I came in that I didn't get angry. And instead I cried.
Yeah, and people just have to ask, why was Elizabeth Grimshaw and her partner treated this way, and then Charlie and Ryan are given callings and are allowed to take the sacrament and are left alone? What's the difference? Why? And if the church is like, oh, we're making progress, great. Apologize to Elizabeth Grimshaw. Apologize to Jill and Katie Searle. Apologize to Dusty Johns. Apologize to the hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of LGBTQ Mormons and ex-Mormons that you held witch hunts against and excommunicated.
And reinstate their membership if that's what they want.
Right.
And I also want to take that a little further and thank the Gerardos and Zachs, the Kyle and Jays, the Jillians, who stood up in front of a commencement ceremony and said, I'm queer, who got married, who were visible in this space, for the podcasts, many podcasts like Mormon Stories and others who highlight topics like this, who create changes through advocacy and representation through visibility. These are all contributing factors to the difference between what happened yesterday and what is now happening today, in my opinion.
Any other responses to that last clip? No? Okay. We'll play one more. This is one of the most heart-wrenching episodes of Mormon Stories. It's Dusty Johns. Yeah. And this is before his actual excommunication.
Yeah.
But he ended up getting excommunicated. So we'll just play this clip last.
And I don't think I played the, I didn't put the entire thing.
It was pretty quick.
All right.
And he sat in our living room, and I said, Bishop, I'm going to be very open with you. Here's where we're at. I kind of told him the brief story. And he goes, you taking the sacrament? And I said, we've decided that we should probably not. We weren't married at the time yet. And he goes, well, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't be taking the sacrament. That's important. And he goes, let me find out on that. I said, okay. He goes, we're going to love you. You're welcome. And he left, and Tate and I just bawled. We held each other and just bawled. Like, maybe there's a change. Maybe we're not going to be angry. We're not going to be mad. We're not going to, come in and make anybody uncomfortable. We just want to be us. And so we kind of celebrated a little bit. Told our families. I think that helped our families a little bit as well. And kept going to church. And I think the second or third time we went was stake conference, and we got a new stake president. The other stake president had been called to 70, and our stake president was new. And in the meantime, we'd had other people that came in. This is a cool story. Our very first Sunday there, we had a couple out of California that came in. And the very first Sunday, were talking about Prop 8 and how good it was and how the church stood its ground and defended traditional marriage. And we just sat in the background and just kind of looked at each other. And afterward, we thought, that was interesting. And it's too bad I don't think she really understands, or I don't think they really know much about what gay people are struggling with. And so we just kind of noted that. And a couple weeks after that, the husband of that couple started calling us Tate Dusty, the rock band or something. He just really started befriending us. The Elders Quorum president, over loving us, telling us his examples of gay people that he knows who've struggled. This incredible amount of love, the ward. Members of every Sunday we'd go and somebody new would come up and be like, hey, we've heard about you. Hey, can we help you with anything? We love you. Like, just love, just great. The ward itself has been perfect. Absolutely perfect.
And what's the name of the ward?
Sage Lakes. Sage Lakes? Sage Lakes Ward in Idaho Falls.
Stake?
North Stake? Idaho Falls North Stake, I think.
Okay.
Temple District. It's the temple. It's the one right by the temple. And so we're thinking, okay, maybe this is going to change. President Basic, the new stake president, comes and meets with us. Texts us, hey, I need to meet with you guys. Can I come over right now? So we're like, holding our breath, come over. We're again open, knowing that we're thinking that eventually it may lead to excommunication. But that's not going to change who we are, and what we want, right? And so he comes over, nothing but love. Nothing but love. So the bishop calls me one day and says, hey, I know that President Basic is asking the higher ups what he should do. And they've been told to pause. And I said, why? He goes, all I know is that the public affairs office is involved. Okay. And I think at that time we started hearing.
This is back then in May.
This is probably June.
June. Okay.
Yeah, probably June.
Okay.
And
pause what?
Pause our disciplinary council.
Okay.
That they were talking about it. Bishop told us that the stake president had been asking, and that first he said that he asked one, and then they asked pretty high up. I don't know how high up, but several layers up in the 70, and they said, yes, proceed. So he was getting ready to call us. And then he got a letter from the public affairs office saying, wait. So they start waiting. Where's was waiting? And then the bishop basically says, he even reads me the letter that says, and I don't mean for this, the bishop has been incredibly awesome. And he's expressed to us his frustration because he's kind of been like, what do we do? Hey, help us understand. Like, do we disciplinary? Do we not? Can we give these guys a calling? We love these guys. We want to give them a calling. Help us out. They haven't had any guidance. And so we find out that there's this letter that from the public affairs office that basically says, hey, we're from Idaho. This guy that writes it, I'm from Idaho. I know the members there very well. We're going to leave this up to you, stake president. You decide what you want to do. And this is always, this is second and third, levels. I'm not hearing this firsthand from anybody, but the bishop had gotten a letter, I think, from the stake president, and he was reading us parts of the letter. So we think, okay, we're waiting. And then we think, well, the stake president came over and gave us nothing but love. He's been open. He's been kind and generous and says we're always welcome. We think this is going to be okay. And then the stake president calls and says, we need to meet. And I didn't go to this meeting. Tate went to this meeting alone. I was at work or something. And the stake president basically told Tate that they needed to do a disciplinary council. And that there were three options: no action, disfellowshipped, or excommunicated. And I got the distinct feeling at that point that they wanted, that it would be better for us if we were separated.
And after we concluded this interview with Dusty, it was before they had actually been excommunicated.
Yeah.
And I remember, Kyle, I think you might have been involved with this, where we reached up to our contacts to see if we could get someone to intervene to stop. And this is right before the reversal of the November 15 policy.
I want to say it was like 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks before.
It was, and I was listening. So Dusty called me right before the interview. He was freaking out. And I was staying here in Salt Lake. I was at the DoubleTree, sitting in the little rotunda, like tears rolling down my face, just listening to this episode, and also knowing like how much we had worked and tried to help Dusty. And then he's excommunicated. And maybe even, I want to say like 9 days. That's what keeps coming. Like 9 days later, the church reverses the policy, no longer mandatory excommunication. And this was beyond, I mean, they had a chance to appeal, just nothing came out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just thought for sure they were going to, pardon them and roll it back. Because it was like 2 weeks later that they took same-sex marriage off the mandatory excommunication list and put it on the optional.
That's right.
But they just left it.
Yep.
It's crazy. Jillian, what are you thinking?
Oh, there's just so much in my head. I hurt for these people. I hurt for the experience that they're going through, because it's painful to not feel welcomed and wanted and loved and treated fairly, and it just hurts. It just hurts. Like, I just feel for these couples too, for the confusion they feel, for the insurity of feeling wanted or important or significant. So I just every new video I'm just watching, it's just painful where, you know, some women are excommunicated right there on the porch and they don't even get to speak to anyone. No one witnesses it. Like, it's just then and there. It's like, how disrespectful, how belittling would that feel? And then others, you have to wait. It's a game of ping pong of like, when do we get to decide? What are the rules? We don't really know who's going to decide. And I don't know. It's just interesting to see now how it is hopefully shifting, and that this can be a permanent thing that gets to change, because for the sake of everyone and for the sake of the mental health and for the happiness of people, I think it's only fair.
And Jillian brings up a really good point about this, like the visibility and optics of it. So for a lesbian couple in Nowhereville, America, you can be excommunicated on your front porch. But for somebody like Dusty, who was a radio DJ and a very well-known Idaho public figure, church PR has to get involved, and they have to weigh the schedule of excommunication based on public relations. And Lori Lee Hall, another great example of how the chief architect who designed some of Mormonism's most iconic buildings, they have to navigate this very discreetly in order to make this thing work. And then it goes back to our discussion about Charlie. So with somebody with that type of a following and that much visibility, what do you do? Like, how do you navigate? This isn't September 6th territory. This is a much brighter, bolder, wider audience. It's very interesting, a very interesting time to be a Latter-day Saint leader.
Yeah. And going back to Lori Lee Hall, I'm pretty confident that if her experience had happened now, where she is a church employer, you know, assigned male at birth, decides to transitions in her ward, you know, she wouldn't have been excommunicated in 2024.
And she would have stayed.
Correct?
Lori Lee Hall is in my the Latter-day Stories chat side, and she said, I would have stayed. I would have stayed in the church.
So, like, again, what's outrageous is the Mormon church allows this bishop roulette, where if you've got privilege, or if you've got the right bishop, or if you're in Cambridge or Berkeley or Brooklyn or Manhattan or certain privileged parts of Utah, you get a pass. And then if you're not so lucky to get the right bishop or the right stake president or live in the right region or be popular or famous or wealthy enough, you know, you might get different treatment. And that just feels unchristlike. Like, wasn't Christ's whole message, everyone's equal, no one's better than anybody else? The poor should be treated with as much love as the wealthy and the rich. Didn't he condemn the rich?
Perhaps that's the difference between Bethlehem and 50 North Temple.
Did he do it on their porch? Did he condemn them on their porches though? No, and from my experience, to be honest, looking back, I probably would not have left the church if it had been so welcoming to the LGBTQ community at the time.
I was going to ask that.
At the time, that was the biggest thing. And when I had come out as queer and started to identify these things within me, I did start to research and learn. I mean, a lot of it was from the content that you guys posted in Latter Gay podcast with the history of where they stand with the queer community. And it blew my mind. And it hurt so bad to see where we stand and where our future is, or where we fit in the celestial kingdom and all that aspects. But had it been more welcoming, I probably would have stayed, which, to be honest, for me at this point, I'm grateful that it wasn't the case. I'm grateful there was a contrast, and I'm grateful that I'm in a position now where I'm happier than I was before, and being queer and seeing the contrast and the split of what's going on.
And more content like this is coming out, and more exposure like that. I know Lori Lee Hall is writing a book, and her book will be out very soon about her experience. Nathan Kitchen, the former president of Affirmation, is writing a book that's talking about that. There's just so many lately that have come out to share these experiences, and this intersection at LGBTQ Avenue and LDS Street, and how that intersection has impacted them and really changed not just an individual. This is probably one blind spot the Mormon Church didn't expect. When they thought they could just get rid of a single LGBTQ member, especially with the November 2015 policy. This is one way of just getting rid of the queer member and kind of thinning the herd a little bit. But what they didn't expect was that it took the whole family. When one queer person left the church, it took their whole family with them. That person left, and their mom and dad and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles. It was a mass exodus out of the church, and I think it was an unintended consequence that probably led to the kind of the reversal or the change of the 2015 policy. But it is absolutely something that the church has never been able to recover from.
Yeah.
That's what affected my family so much. Like that made a huge impact on us. First, my older brother, I mean, out of 7 kids, 7 kids in my family, 6 of us are out.
Yeah.
And it was a huge piece was how the queer community is seen and perceived and treated. It was not just for me, but for my straight siblings who were like, whoa, that's not okay. We're not okay with this. And it's still controversial with how that's being seen.
And that's part of a bummer that it wasn't probably so much that the church was sad about how it was treating its LGBTQ members. It's more that the church was realizing that this was having collateral damage amongst the straight membership.
Right.
And that's when they realized they needed to make changes. And that's sad. Plus when they were embarrassed publicly by all the disastrous media relations. So we need to start wrapping up. I'm going to just ask everyone really quick, please subscribe on Latter Gay Stories, YouTube, Facebook. Please subscribe to Mormon Stories, YouTube and Facebook. Please comment, please like, please share this. That'll help with the algorithms. I'm going to just wrap up really quickly and give all you guys a chance to wrap up as well. But for me, I just want to say our hearts today are not in any way to call out Ryan and Charlie, to have anything bad. We are here to celebrate. We are here to say congratulations, Charlie and Ryan, on your beautiful marriage. Congratulations that you have helped break through the barrier, the glass ceiling, where you have succeeded in obtaining callings, taking the sacrament, and being accepted and embraced as active same-sex married people. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to your bishop. Congratulations to your stake president, to all the ward and stake members that have supported it. And congratulations to the LDS Church, because we know you know about Charlie. We know you know about these other 5, 6, 10 couples out there. And we feel very confident. We're very hopeful that 2024 represents a sea change where the Mormon Church begins embracing and accepting its same-sex married couples, not into full fellowship, but into partial fellowship, which is a really important step towards full fellowship. So congratulations, Charlie and Ryan. Congratulations, Mormon Church. Please keep it going. Okay, Kyle, what do you want to say?
I want to do a different round of congratulations. I want to congratulate the Latter-day Saints, the 74% of the Latter-day Saint community who support same-sex marriage in Utah. A surprising and strong contingent of Latter-day Saints who believe that marriage can be defined more than one way. I also want to congratulate people like Natalie Klein, April Despain, Michelle Tanner, Brother Matson. I want to congratulate Jacob Hansen for realizing that their predominant narrative in Mormonism isn't sustainable. And they've realized very quickly that the only way now to try to make a difference is be the loudest one in the room when so many other Latter-day Saints, an overwhelming majority, support queer experiences, because likely there's a family member within their own home who sit at their own kitchen table who experiences something along this spectrum. So I want to congratulate those who are now kind of in their last ditch effort to try to hold the banner high, but in reality they're realizing that the contingent of Mormonism is moving in a different direction. And that further congratulation goes out, again, I've said it multiple times in this episode, to the queer community who continue to remain visible, who continue to show up, who continue to wear their lapel pins, who continue to be visible in their communities, both religiously and publicly and civically, in all these areas to say, I am who I am not alone, I am not broken, and I have better days ahead. Contrary to what you believe, I am not all the things your church taught about me. Those are the areas that I want to congratulate. And again, like people, including Charlie and Ryan in this as well, who continue to break those ceilings and continue to take us to higher and loftier areas. To me, I think that's why we do what we do. And this is our labor of love. So thank you to all of those people.
Beautiful. Jillian.
I think the biggest thing for me is recognizing those who do sit down and sit within their own knowing. You know, even Charlie identifying his sexuality, choosing a husband, choosing what is best for him, what is happiest for him. That is that's the base of my message is wherever you're at in your journey and whatever truth is going to shift is trusting your gut and trusting the information that you feel is right, regardless of any entity or other person, and just challenging the things that don't feel right and sticking to what your gut is, sticking to what feels right. And those are the groups of people that I recognize and that I want to congratulate, because we're all doing the best that we understand how to, and information changes and we get to change our minds as information comes. And I love that for a lot of people.
And check out me and Jillian on Jubilee Middle Ground, ex-Mormons versus Mormons on Sunday. Right, Jillian?
Sunday.
All right, Gerardo, you get the last word. The penultimate word, because I get the last word.
Yes. So, well, just really short. I think I just want to say, if you're a Latter-day Saint LGBT person who believes in the church, who wants to stay active in the church, and you're not receiving this same treatment, please message us. We want to help. We want to make sure that you're getting the same treatment that these other people, including Charlie and Ryan, are getting. And we can probably figure out ways to help out with that, because I think that's why we want to highlight this. We want everyone to receive the same treatment that Ryan and Charlie are getting.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's a great point.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We all support that.
Yeah. And I'll just say, on a really serious note, thousands, if not tens of thousands of LGBTQ Mormons have lost their lives in this battle. And, affirmation comes before us. There are a lot of activists and LGBT people and family members that have paid enormous sacrifices long before social media, podcasts, Facebook. Carolyn Pearson, for example, whose shoulders we stand on. So love and, gratitude for everyone who's sacrificed to make all this possible.
And honoring the grief in it.
Yeah. All right. Well, please check out Latter Gay Stories. Kyle Ashworth on Latter Gay Stories. Kyle.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you again. Thanks for the invite. Jillian, Gerardo, John, thank you. Just a great, just good people.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jillian.
Absolutely.
Stay in touch. And Gerardo, thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today on Mormon Stories. Thanks to Maven and Julia and Brooklyn for helping out, and Gerardo. And, please spread the words far and wide. Please send this this podcast to your bishops and stake presidents and let them all know that change is afoot so they can be educated, and that will help get the word out. Hopefully someday the church will make some public statement letting everyone know what's allowed, what's going on. But until that happens, just spread this podcast far and wide. Be good to each other. Be kind to each other. We'll see you all again soon on another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast. Take care, everybody.